the little guy.
Install the gable flush with the starter and straight to the eave. Only install 2 to 3 nails in this per length. Position your rake starter and cut any paper out of your way. Mark a straight line to where you figure for waste. As such, using your cutoff piece, slide behind your gable and hold tight to determine your cut point. Again, take the starter, the rake starter, sliding behind and determine your meeting point for your gable. Cut from this point to this point. Determine true. In this instance, you can see the gable bows. So we're going to put another nail halfway down and pull in. Your fully installed rake should look like this. Cut the paper back flush or it will hold you out. Once you have your angle cut, your next cut will be bringing your other rake up to meet it. Tuck the 2 rakes in behind each other, this being your leading edge. And mark it. We're going to cut this flap down even. Install nails to make your rake piece stay flush and true. We're going to install the J-trim in a similar fashion to the rake starter. However, we are going to overhang the J-trim by 1/2 inch into the eaves trough. Note the 1/2 inch overhang of the J. We will now cut the top to match the bottom of the rake. Again, we're going to use the scrap piece of the J-trim, usually at least 2 feet long, to determine our overlay, or in this case underlay for the gable. Begin by cutting the scrap piece so that the top portion is slightly longer than the bottom portion, as such. Okay, and we're going to slip the J-trim behind and mark the top cut. From this point here where we drew our line to this point, it's just a straight cut. Begin by cutting your J-trim thusly, about 1/2 inch off the bottom. The tab we left at approximately 1/2 inch. Use a pair of snips to create a crease. And bend sharply. Install sufficient nails, approximately 1 every 12 inches, to hold the J-trim in place. Please note that I have only installed 3 in this 8-foot piece for demonstration purposes only. Note the 1/2 inch overhang of the J-trim. The first shingle will sit in as a full shingle and notch out a weeper. Cutting the notch in the shingle and either bending or removing the bottom flap. I prefer to bend, gives a nice finished edge. Install first shingle. Here I've used 2 clips, minimum of 4. Or maximum of 4, sorry, minimum of 2 depending on the size. Oh. Here we see the installation of the rake starter valley connection. Note the miter coming down into the starter nicely. Calculate the center point, which is here, of your valley. Install the valley, figure out where you need to cut and bend this lock down flush. As so. Next, we're going to draw a line on the back side from this point to this point and bend a nice lock. You can now see my rake line, my bend line, and my starter bend line. Cut this back to about 1/2 inch. Bend it around as such. We will do the same thing to this edge here, creating a nice covered edge this distance into the gable. Note the rake edge is bent further back than the gable edge, as well a tighter lock. This will lock around your starter. This is just for a nice clean effect. Install a clip and straighten. Install a clip and nail your valley in place. Once straight, install a second clip and nail again. To finish the valley, cut 3 times and bend the tabs around so that no bugs can penetrate up in and we don't leave an open space. Finish with a hammer. Nice and smooth. When joining a straight gable, it's quite simple. We're just going to cut about 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch of a V off of here. like so, and install so that there's an overhang of the rakes rather. On the gable, we're going to basically do the same. We're going to cut a V out of this, from this spine over, and another V over here. Like so. This part will install over that gable there. Like so. Making sure the top gable drains into the lower gable, and it will drain out either onto a shingle, a eaves trough, or a valley. Do not over nail the rake until, or the gable, until you are sure it is true top to bottom. Meeting a valley point for the trim itself. Push the valley into place on the first side and install clips and nails where necessary. As such, installing a nail here and here will prevent the shingle from popping free of the clips. It is not necessary in all clips, just first and last. Our next step is we are going to cut even with the ridge up to this point here. That is determined by just sticking your hand underneath here and feeling for the meeting point. As such. At this point here, you may tag with a nail right there to hold the valley in place from moving back and forth. This nail will not leak because it will be covered either by shingle, by a valley coming up this way, or by both. Make sure it is high in the corner.
I'm not sure. No.
Determine your overhang for your valley. In this case, approximately 3 inches. Follow the valley up to the meeting point. We're now going to determine our meeting point here and here. We are going to leave it long on this side as it needs to be bent onto this side, walking over here and then run up and nailed out. Note, there is no starter on the front. There is a starter there, but not there, as we are still stripping. So we've determined our meeting point here. Cut straight back and left an overhang. Now I'm going to cut up along here and then down. Our finished step will be cut a small miter here and bend that accordingly.